It's okay, Robert.
Okay,
Very
recording and
pragmatic.
started. Go for it.
All right. The adversary. Process of elimination. After Henry IV, barely. 11-year-old boy, red hoodie with skulls at front of church, beckoned. Considers praying for father to change, to love him more. Priest asks boy why he came up, and boy backs down. Memories of father refusing to forgive him come flooding. If you were really sorry, you wouldn't say but or you or it's just that. Divine condescension, self love, selfish. Did you know that pigeons are one of the only species to pass the mirror test? Self recognition is a rare ability. Doesn't really communicate over the internet, but there's a page break here. I tried to pluck the bottle brush off the wall. Not all of it, just the dead bits. Separate the yellow from the green. Unfortunately, some of the weeds were intertwined with the wanted. They came apart together. And my grandma said I ruined the lilies. Technically, she was right. And because she couldn't have been wrong, I've been hesitant to pluck ever since. But that doesn't mean she doesn't ask me to distinguish between the flowers and the weeds in our yard before they've bloomed. How am I to know a weed from a flower before it's blossomed? You mean you can't tell? Just by looking at it? I suppose I'm a dandelion to her. Full fuzz, a wish unwished, permanent potential. According to Wikipedia, the term weed has no botanical significance because a plant that is a weed in one context is not a weed when growing in a situation where it is wanted. It doesn't come here anymore. Once every Sunday, now no days. But now that monkey off back, where monkey? Before, kitchen table accusations, golden child, over supported. Jesus Christ, what an asshole. I say only to bother him, risking sacrilege, temporarily forgetting that he can't hear me. He claims to read my mind, yet doesn't know the more it hurts, the harder I do it. Has no idea I've only lied to him exactly once when I said I was wrong. 12 years of waiting for the most basic of revelations. You are not the devil. All relief of perversion. But now, I don't have to make a choice. There's no timer. I'm not Hammurabi. 12 more years means nothing when you're not addicted to fairness. Retribution is a hell of a drug. But this anger is infinite. Every poem captured, every thought dangling off the edge of a cliff, every sleep under siege. He can't say he's sorry, so he settles for, I hope you have a restful night. My grandmother squeezes the Bible like a lemon, but I find no melatonin in even the most appropriate proverb. Maybe prayers only work for believers. Uneasy lies the head that wears a crown. I'm clearly not Christian, seeing as I can't seem to forgive people who don't apologize. According to Wikipedia, pigeons are a type of weed. But I'm not here to win arguments. My secret faith? Maybe I do hope God exists, just for the sake of denying him something.
All right. Thank you, Matthew. Um, would anyone like to volunteer to go first to share some feedback? And then that person can go on and popcorn to the next. Okay, I'm going to pick on Emily for you to go first.
I was going to volunteer.
Okay, good.
I'm ready, sort of. Yeah, thank you for sharing this, Matthew. Like a lot of my feedback is put in the letter that I responded, and I did link to gifts, just some poems that I like that kind of deal with religion in a different way. So let me see. I thought I was ready. So to answer like one of your, I wanted to talk a little bit about your like question in the author statement about how the poem and like the speaker comes off. I specifically really appreciated the playfulness and the sort of like rebellion and mischievous tone that it had when talking about a more serious subject matter. So I think that your question was something like, was it too serious or was it too playful? And my answer to that was that for me, it was almost the perfect mix of both. And I thought that the plant metaphors and all the plant imagery kind of like broke that almost like intense voice up. So I really appreciated that. And then just like almost a question that I had was what this poem would be like if the physical form of it could kind of reflect like the title, which the portion of it was process of elimination. So I know like also in your artist statement, you also said that you really like working with form. And so I thought it would be cool to see that the form of this poem like pushed to an extreme and just see how that changed the content and what you felt like you could do with just like the physical part of it on the page. I think like you said in the reading, we like lost a little bit of it on the discussion, like the page break and stuff. But I'd love to see like the idea of elimination and the process of elimination come more into the physical visual part of the poem.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought that was a great idea. I've already replied to you with this exact thing though. So I hope you don't mind if this feels kind of curt, but I think let's move on to the next person now, because like, yes, I think that's all I have to say to your question. It's not yes or no, but the answer is yes.
Awesome. Feel free to popcorn it, Emily.
Sorry,
Oh, sorry. Before you do that, I know that you're all like active in the discussion. And so if more things come up as a result of the conversation that's not in your written feedback, you can say it, as we workshop any of the pieces. Okay. All right. Sorry to cut you off, Emily.
That's okay. I'll popcorn to Leslie.
I'm sorry, I have some really quick going on. Can you popcorn it to someone else and come back to me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll popcorn to Robert.
Well, Matthew, you talked about in your author statement wanting to kind of set the challenge on the reader to sort of decode the poem. So I guess my interpretation, and of course I could always be wrong, and I leave room for that, but I was thinking that maybe it's like if you're sort of decoding the language, trying to pick apart like the sort of meaning of words and like why does like almost like in the philosophy of linguistics is like why is a pigeon called a pigeon, or like why do we call an elephant an elephant? I don't know if you ever play this game with yourself, Matthew, but if you ever just like say a word over and over enough times in your head, it loses all meaning, you know. If I said the word booger 50 times in my head, I'm like, why is a booger called a booger? I was like, why isn't a booger called an apple, and why isn't an apple? So it's like I kind of get that feeling with this like piece that you're trying to sort of like decode like the sort of like underlying maybe reasons for language, the sort of philosophy of linguistics. That was sort of my interpretation of the piece. And then
Yeah.
sorry, you go for it. Yeah.
I was just gonna say I love that, but then unfortunately I was gonna say you're breaking up just a little bit sometimes. I don't think it's ruining what you have to say, but maybe yeah.
Did I break? Was I breaking up?
Just a bit. I don't think you need to repeat anything though.
Okay. I will popcorn it off to Thriss. Thriss in the blue tank top.
Funny. All right. To this. Yeah, responding to this. Honestly, I like the form of the poem and just like how it's like constantly shifting like back and forth into the middle. It's something I do too in my poems. Then like it's just kind of you're always looking around. And also just the whole like each of the sections where you even reference like Wikipedia, like to define one term, and then it's like a whole research, like, or not even research, but to me, I was like, a whole train of thought just disperses from that one search up of a term. It's just, really great and just going back and forth, but also keeping the whole religious context in there too. Something I liked personally.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I know why I made my form decisions, but I feel like it'd be kind of ego stroking if I started explaining them. So let's popcorn it to the next person.
Right. Angelica, I don't know if she went yet.
I got you. I got you. Thank you. Okay. I really enjoyed your poem. It really reminded me of just the conversations I've had with my parents about like religion and stuff, because my parents were born Catholic and they raised my brothers and I as Catholic. But one of my brothers ended up Christian. The other one, I don't know what he believes in, and another brother and myself are agnostic. And that's kind of like the vibes I got from your poem. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. But that's just kind of the vibes that I got from your poem. But there was just like a lot of lines that really stood out in each section of the poem. The form, I know that you wanted a lot of feedback on the form specifically. I really loved your form just because I'm so used to any serious topic that's being talked about in poetry. They're usually just blocks, like big long blocks that just keep going and going and going. But yours really, it was a serious topic, but you also threw in this creative form of, like, let's make you read this way, let's make you read that way, let's make you read in the center and stuff like that. And I think that's something I really enjoyed because I found myself not
open door.
okay. Go out and Paul for help. I'm so sorry. That's my nephew. I'm so sorry. He's attached to my hip. And anyways, that's kind of like what I got from your poem. But I really want to say that I did enjoy your form because it kept me personally. It made me kept reading because I was like, oh, what's it gonna say next? Or like, oh, what's this section gonna be about? So I feel like you broke it down in like I don't want to say like like a beginning, middle, and end, but it's kind of like here's what happened, like here's my thought process throughout the poem, and you laid it out like very, very beautifully. And that's like all I want to say.
Thank you. Yeah, I was aiming for something a bit stream of conscious. I know I literally just said to Thris that I wouldn't explain, but yeah, I like that, especially because I feel like that's how I deal with serious topics. I don't get large chunks of relevant information at a time. I get little bits which get interrupted by other things. And sometimes it's like, wait, why am I thinking about that now? How is that even related? You know? Okay. Sorry. We can move on. If by the way, I think that only two who haven't gone yet are Leslie
Yeah,
and Christine.
Yeah, I'll popcorn to Leslie if she's ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm just gonna basically reiterate what a lot of people said already. I love the form. I love that you decided to play with the form and push it all over the place, left and right, center. The tone was really heavy right from the beginning, which was really interesting and pulled me in right from the beginning. I think this was probably a hard topic to tackle when you start getting involved with family and religion. But there was just a lot of beautiful lines and just a really interesting language choices. So, I mean, one line that I really like the alliteration. It's in the center of the, let's see, yeah, it's about the center of the poem. The full fuzz, a wish and wish, permanent potential. I just like the way some of those words are just flowing right out of your mouth. And I think you did a really good job, just with the whole flow of the piece as a whole. It just like rolls right through really nicely.
All right, thank you, thank you. I did notice the tone was a little intense from the very beginning. And it does sort of stay like that, but it didn't come off to you as like humorless, right?
No,
Okay, good. Yeah,
no, I liked how it started. The 11-year-old boy, red hoodie with skulls at front of church. That's one of my favorite lines, was just the very first one. I thought that was a great introduction.
good. Awesome, awesome. Okay, let's move on to, I believe it'll be our last workshopper. Yeah,
Christine.
and that's what I was trying to do with the pigeon line. So that's kind of a relief to hear.
Okay. Yeah, I think the poem was really good. It made me like question my own beliefs at one point. But I like the format of the poem. I also enjoyed reading the details of each character in the poem. And I feel like the transition between one topic to another was kind of smooth in a way. It was a little different. It's different than what I'm used to. So overall, I think it was a good poem.
Okay, cool. I guess with that, my section of today is over. So
I see Emily's hand actually. There might be a couple more comments, Matthew. So I know
Oh,
we've gone
okay.
through everyone, but there might be more that surfaced for folks.
yeah, all right. If anyone feels like they have a little more to say, feel free. And we'll start with Emily, of course.
Oh, thank you. I actually had just like a question. I was wondering if you would, you don't have to, but I was wondering if you would confirm like who the he in the poem is for me and for others. Or if you don't want to disclose that, like if that he changes throughout the poem or not. Because I would like to actually go back and like reread and maybe give a little bit more. But I wanted to hear that from you before I did.
Would you
Hey.
prefer, sorry, Matt, would you prefer to hear Emily's interpretation and decoding before you explain, or you don't have to explain? Because it might be interesting to kind of hear where people, where everyone's approximation is for that he character, without you inserting it, or you can be more in dialogue with everyone about it. It's up to you.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to seem too self-involved, but I do think I will just try to explain what I'm trying to do, because here's the thing. I'm pretty sure that no matter how you interpreted the he, you can't technically be wrong. Like, I know my intention, but I also know what I'm like keeping room for. Regardless, I would say that the biggest hint I can give is if there is a capitalized H that doesn't need to be capitalized, that's probably not referring to my actual dad on Earth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Robert?
Robert?
Sure. So then I hope then at the end of this your workshop session, then Matthew, I hope that you will reveal some of the mystery to us then, because I know that the poem is purposely written to be somewhat archaic, and I was hoping that you could sort of decode some of the language for us and give us some of your intentions, because I do like watching David Lynch interviews online of being like, oh, that was what Mulholland Drive was trying to say.
Yeah, it is funny. I read some author statement of yours like weeks ago, and I was like, oh wow, this guy and I have the exact opposite tastes, just in general.
I think you're referencing the fact that I write very, very straightforward poems where I'm like, my goal is to make the reader know exactly what I'm trying to say. And then I have a point I'm trying to make, and then I'm going to reiterate that point 40 times throughout the poem. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna say it out loud, sure.
I think it's great.
Okay. Not sure what your question is exactly, but I will say that whatever I try to keep ambiguous, I try to be very, very precise about. I'm sorry, what exactly did you ask?
My question, I'm sorry, I kind of wrapped it up in a joke at the end. But my initial question was, at the end of your workshop session today, I wanted to know if you were willing to sort of unravel some of the mysteries of the poem, because I know that there's a couple different interpretations that people are taking. Maybe you're fine with that. Maybe there's meant to be 17 different interpretations of this poem, and that's cool too. You know, it's like a photograph is worth like 1,000 words, right? Or and so my direct question to you is, are you willing to then reveal what your intention behind the poem was? Or if there is a secret decoded actual message, and there's like at the end there is ability to figure it out, you know what I mean? Are you willing to just like reveal what reveal that to us?
I will say that if the problem is what is he referring to, as in like literally the word he, not me, he, I do want that to be sort of ambiguous, because part of the thing I was going for was the way people see themselves, and how one person might think that he means this, and if you ask another character, he means that, right? So yeah, I don't want to give that away too much, especially because I don't want to feel like I'm selling out interpersonal family drama. But I think that's all I have to say on that. I'm sorry. It's hard to squeeze more out of me.
No, I think that's completely fair, especially if you're, I know for me, when I'm writing about family, and it's sensitive, like I want to write about it, but it's also a sensitive topic. There are ways to mitigate that through persona poems, in which you take on a different point of view, or intentionally obscuring subjects so that they could mean multiple entities. I think that's perfectly okay. And as long as you're thinking through these decisions when you're revising your poem, and kind of looking at what is an option for you moving forward. Because I think it can be challenging to write these things. And I commend you for doing that, Matthew.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add? Thank you, Emily. Perhaps it's time to move on to Robert's piece then.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate this poem so much. And, thank you for offering it to us for this week. Really quickly, before we move on to Robert's workshop, how did this go, Matthew?
I guess I wasn't expecting as much praise as I got, but I also wasn't expecting that to go on as long as it did.
Okay.
And I'm
That's
not
totally
saying that's a bad thing.
cool. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Okay, so up next we have Robert for workshop. And Robert, would you like to read your piece to us? Or do you want to dive right in?
Yeah, we could read the piece in class. Can you bring it up, Professor?
Absolutely. And then as I bring this up, I know you have asked for a creative workshop The only something that I've noticed is that some folks already wrote their poems, which is great. They've included them in discussion board, and some folks haven't. So I'm wondering, do you want time during workshop for people to write in response to your poem, or do you want people to read what they wrote? Do you want to hear more critique? What are your thoughts on how this time will go?
That'd be cool if if some people wanted to read some of their poems that they sort of were inspired to write, I guess, as response. That would be cool.
Okay, awesome. And then
Hopefully
if you
they're all
haven't,
hilarious, just like my poem. A certain level we're trying to reach, guys.
all right. And then if you haven't written a poem in response to Robert, make sure to do that and turn that in over onto discussion board. That way Robert can take a look at it. All right, let's go ahead and get started.
All right, this is How to Accept Appreciation, How to Accept Compliments, How to Accept Love by Robert Gold. And my friend, he tells me, you could be like Michelangelo. And I say, thank you. I've always felt like a Ninja Turtle who liked pizza, but no one's ever just come out and said it. And my friend, he tells me, you could be like Van Gogh. And I say, thank you. Sometimes when I watch old karaoke videos of myself, I too feel like cutting off my own ear. And my friend, he tells me, you could be like Salvador Dali. And I say, thank you. But whenever I melt an old clock, people always tell me I'm ruining their microwave. I mean, in my defense, I did put it on the popcorn setting. I can't take a compliment and I don't know why. Sometimes someone makes me a birthday cake and all I want to do is cry, which conveniently is also another way to put out birthday candles. My dog licks my face, but he's just here for the salt content. My cat says to me, meow, and I say, watch your tone with me. My friend texts me asking me to spend time. My friends text me asking me to spend time, but they've probably already got 1,000 other people on the line. And in fact, I'm probably the last person on their list. I'm certainly nobody's first pick. On the bottom of the barrel, I'm like Mr. Scrooge from A Christmas Carol. And my friend, he tells me, you could be like J.K. Rowling. And I say, thank you. I do play with my wand too much. And my friend, he tells me, you could be like E.L. James. And I say, thank you. 50 Shades of Grey is what I want my grandchildren to call me. And my friend, he tells me, you could be like Hunter S. Thompson. And I say, thank you. Fear and Loathing is what everyone in my Zumba class calls me. I can't take a compliment and I don't know why. My family reaches out, but I make up stupid lies. Don't get too close to me. I have the personality of an electric eel. I wish that I felt about me the way others say they feel. My pet chameleon turns blue whenever I enter the room, and I say, that's a little passive aggressive of you, Kevin. In this poem, my chameleon's name is Kevin. I don't know if lizards are supposed to have special lizard names like dogs and cats, like Sparky and Whiskers. So I'm sorry, Kevin, that I couldn't give you a more clever name. Just add that to the list of my fuck ups. With this pen, I wish that I could just pretend, but my anxiety carries through with me until the very end. Even after a good conversation, I wonder, I stress, and I bite my nails, and I hope I didn't offend. I'm always second guessing myself, and it's my own personal hell. I'm withering on the inside now, and I hope you cannot tell. I'm living like everyone's laughing at me, and I'm falling down the well. And my friend, he tells me, you could be like Tolkien, like Stephen King, like Dan Brown, like Sanderson. You could reinvent yourself. And I tell him, I think I need to learn to love myself before I can love anybody else.
Great. Thank you so much, Robert. All right. Who would like to volunteer to read their poem in response to Robert?
We could just start calling on people.
Yeah, I was just about to do that. Unless you want to call on them, you're welcome to do that.
I don't mind being brutal. I'm taking a Russian Revolution class right now. I'm learning all about human brutality. I got Angelica with that joke. Yeah, let's say Well, the first one to respond was Matthew. Matthew, do you want to read your poetic response? Smugly Buggums. Sounds like a Rick and Morty character.
I kind of feel like I had enough attention today, but I mean, if you want me to, if you're cool with that, all right.
Yeah, yes. Read it. I'm calling
Okay.
on you. You're on the spot now.
If it's what you want. All right. So, oh, wait. I'm still on the wrong island thread. This is Christine's. All right. Yeah. So, I apologize because I feel like I'll only ever be half the comedian you can be over poetry. But yeah, this is my attempt to write, I guess, something Robert Gold-esque. Okay. My response was Smugly Bugham's epic panhandling adventure, which I also put working title because I don't think I have the confidence to ever stay behind something called Smugly Bugham's epic panhandling.
You
Anyways,
can't change that now. This poem is forever Smugly Buggums.
it's frozen in time. Once, I gave a hobo a penny, but he didn't ask for a nickel instead. He just clicked his heels and gave me the feels. I was like, are you for reals? He just said, let's get this bread. Later that day, a man stood in my way as I was asking, as I was skating, so now I was hating this man who had caused me dismay. Can I get some cash? I nearly fell on my ass just for him to beg. Nearly ate shit because this idiot thought he had to even ask. He pegged me for a panhandling whore, and he was right, so score. I gave him 4, but he wanted more, and to be frank, my leg! But to be honest, I shouldn't have promised that I'd supply the extra pie. Then very unsmartly I did. What's the point of this story? The man who wanted more, he was lied to, so get wrecked, kid. But the man former had a world warmer due to where he put his head.
Well, I'm glad that's the kind of art that I inspire people, homeless people getting pegged.
Oh no.
I've read definitely friends who have written stuff like I wrote something that was very Robert Gold-esque, and I'm like, and then I read it and it's like it's like so over the top, like gratuitous and profane, and I'm like, oh God, I'm inspiring an entire generation of degenerates with my salacious humor. But I love it. I love it that you went there with it, Matthew. Who's the next person who wrote did someone else write a poem?
Emily. And then if other folks after Emily, we're gonna call on folks to share, even if it's a line or a stanza. I think it'd be nice to hear from everybody.
Sure. Emily, do you have your pegging poem ready?
Let's see. Mine is not at all funny or fun or like the vibe of right now. So I feel like if you're okay with reading it on your own, I would prefer that. But I would love to like talk about like the reason I chose to respond in this way in terms of like your craft decisions. Is that okay with you, Robert?
Yeah, no, if you think that your poem was going to bring down the vibe of the room, then please don't bring that in here right now.
Yeah, I think that's the best decision. So let me find it really quickly. I was really interested in, I can't remember if it was in your artist statement, I think, just about the idea of not accepting compliments. So my poem, for people who didn't have the joy of reading it, was about like catcalling specifically, and like being like a woman, or specifically a woman of color, and having to reject compliments or deal with these compliments that are unwarranted. See, I'm already bringing the vibe down, but so that's what my poem was about. And I really tried to, like I said, focus on that idea that you brought up, because I think it was very relevant to who we are as writers, and then responding in this way was relevant to who I am as a woman. So I did that. And then I also tried to kind of like respond in a way that was very like circular, because I felt that your poem began somewhere and ended somewhere that was close to the place where it began, if that makes sense. Like it was very like tied in a bow, and I really appreciated that. So I tried to channel that in this work, and kind of have like a moral of the story at the end. So yeah, that's all I have to say, if that's okay with everybody.
No, I just reread your piece right now. It has a very like spoken word quality to it. So even if the tone of it is not necessarily humorous, I think that sometimes my poem, especially with the yours doesn't have as necessarily a rhyming aspect, but certainly the reason why I lean into the rhyming aspect sometimes is because I wanted to have that sort of spoken word, sort of like, you know what I mean, like quality of like, that's why, you know, rap music has some of those like good punches, at least that I like, that gives it that musicality. And because in your poem you use such very like strong like language, and there's like a lot of like expletives and stuff like that, and it's very in your face. I love that. I grew up reading like a lot of like slam poetry. There's a poet that I used for this week for this assignment, and it's a poem called "Pretty" by Kate McKay. You've heard it, Professor? Okay, so Emily, I don't know if we could play it in class, but it really relates to the poem that Emily wrote, and Emily, you'd feel the vibes if you read her, if you got a chance to watch her, and it definitely, I like the energy, and I'm glad that if that's the poem that you wrote that was inspired by my piece, then I love that, because a lot of every other poem that I've written for this class so far has been a serious poem. I just decided to bring something funny for this class, but you brought a lot of really good slam poetry energy.
Yeah, that's what I forgot to say, is I really did try and channel that, because every time, I haven't been in a class with you before, but I have noticed that you're very performative, at least in this class. So I did try and channel that for the sake of this response poem. And then in addition, I know just for the sake of workshop, you said like that you brought something funny, but I do want to note that I think that this had a very serious subject matter at the same time, and that's really for me where the heart of the poem lied. But then using humor to discuss it, especially as a writer and a performative one, I thought was a very intentional decision.
Professor, I don't know if do we have time today to show the Pretty?
Sure. Is it Kate McKay or is it Sarah Kay?
I think it's Kate McKay, MIKKAI.
Okay, I think I was just, yeah, I think I was just spelling her name incorrectly. Yeah, here we go. 1 second. Ah, where did you all go? I've just updated my desktop, so everything goes away.
Yeah, so I guess right before we play it, Emily, I definitely feel like your poetry will definitely feel, you'll feel channeled through Kate's poem, and I think I think you guys will feel very inspired by it, because it's very in your face, and I love that kind of slam poetry energy that like brings sort of poetry to a performance level. I think is a lot of fun.
Mm.
When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be pretty? Will I be pretty? What comes next? Oh, right. Will I be rich, which is almost pretty depending on where you shop. And the pretty question infects from conception, passing blood and breath into cells. The word hangs from our mother's hearts in a shrill fluorescent floodlight of worry. Will I be wanted, worthy, pretty? But puberty left me this funhouse mirror dryad, teeth set at science fiction angles, crooked nose, face donkey long, and pockmarked where the hormones went, finger painting my poor mother. How could this happen? You'll have porcelain skin as soon as we can see a dermatologist. You sucked your thumb, that's why your teeth look like that. You were hit in the face with a Frisbee when you were 6, otherwise your nose would have been just fine. Don't worry, we'll get it all fixed, she would say, grasping my face, twisting it this way, then that, as though it were a cabbage she might buy. But this is not about her. Not her fault she too was raised to believe the greatest asset she could bestow upon her awkward little girl was a marketable facade. By 16, I was pickled with ointments, medications, peroxides, teeth corralled into steel prongs, laying in a hospital bed, face packed with gauze, cushioning the brand new nose the surgeon had carved. Belly gorged on 2 pints of my own blood I had swallowed under anesthesia, and every convulsive twist of my gut like my body screaming at me from the inside out. What did you let them do to you? All the while, this never-ending chorus droning on and on like the IV needle dripping liquid beauty into my blood. Will I be pretty? Will I be pretty? Like my mother unwinding the gift wrap to reveal the bouquet of daughter her $10,000 bought her. Pretty, pretty. And now I have not seen my own face in 10 years. I have not seen my own face in 10 years, but this is not about me. This is about the self-mutilating circus we have painted ourselves clowns in, about women who will prowl 30 stores and 6 malls to find the right cocktail dress, but who haven't a clue where to find fulfillment or how to wear joy, wandering through life shackled to a shopping bag beneath the tyranny of those 2 pretty syllables, about men wallowing on bar stools, drearily practicing attraction, and everyone who will drift home tonight crestfallen because not enough strangers found you suitably fuckable. This is about my own someday daughter. When you approach me, already stung, stained with insecurity, begging, Mom, will I be pretty? Will I be pretty? I will wipe that question from your mouth like cheap lipstick and answer, no. The word pretty is unworthy of everything you will be, and no child of mine will be contained in 5 letters. You will be pretty intelligent, pretty creative, pretty amazing, but you will never be merely pretty.
Thank you for that gift, Robert. Yeah, that was great. That's some old school slam from 2002.
Yeah, I always get emotional listening to that poem because I think it has a lot of great humor in it, and then I think that it also has a great, very powerful underlying message. I love the way that she uses hand gestures. I love the way that she uses alliteration. She uses a little bit of rhyme, but she doesn't rely on it too heavily, and she still has a lot of great musicality, I think, in her poetry, without necessarily having to rely on rhyme. And definitely some of that, that OG early 2000s slam poetry
Yeah.
is definitely something I've been trying to work on this quarter. And hopefully, Emily, from watching that, hopefully you felt like that, if that kind of gave vibes from the poem that you wrote, you see some of the similarities. But yeah, that's so yeah, Kate McKay is definitely like a big influence.
Great. Also, just the idea of exploding one word, right? It's essentially a manifesto about one word, and exploring all of its definitions and connotations, and then rewriting new definitions that, you know, of the word pretty to pass on to the next generation. All right, thank you. Yeah, I love that mixture that's going on too, Emily. Would anyone else like to read their creative response to Robert?
I can call on them professor. I can go
Okay.
a little Stalin-esque here. Let's see. Leslie, did you have any thoughts, feelings, anything you'd like to laugh or cry about?
I'm just kind of trying to put something down right now, something that I can come up with on the spot. So I'm gonna need a few minutes.
Sure. Thris, do you have any thoughts, feelings, amens, hallelujahs?
I mean, we're definitely like, right off the bat, like after just like the first 2, I was like, humor already. I was like, yep, this is trademark Robert. She's bringing up the references and the laughs like all throughout. Definitely the last statement like hit me, or like that one part where you talk about, at this pen, I wish I could just pretend, but my anxiety carries through with me. Like that shit hits, for a writer every single time.
Yeah, definitely. The pop culture references have sort of become like a staple point in my writing. Some professors hate it. Some tolerate it. It's really hit or miss because it almost goes off of that sort of like Family Guy-esque level of humor, right? It's like if you didn't grow up in the same time period as like Seth MacFarlane, you might lose, right? Like, 60% of the references or whatever, right? So you're kind of going a little hit or miss. So sometimes I think when I'm writing, whether it's like literary or poetry, whatever, I try to go for some of like the very like A-listers or whatever. So it'll feel very like accessible, you know what I mean? To the mass majority of people. But sometimes I go like a little like obscure. I don't know if everyone is going to know who Sanderson is, or I think then some people know who Dan Brown is and stuff like that. But that's just sort of become like a flavor of my writing, and it's like it definitely puts me into like a little box. But it's been something I've been like sort of like unwilling to let go of, and I get a lot of like mixed level of responses with like the heavy pop culture references. Angelica, do you have thoughts, feelings, grievances, or forever hold your peace?
Yeah, Robert, I just want to say that this is the second class I've had with you, and I'm always looking forward to your poems, just because I know I'll get a good laugh out of them. This one I really saw the relations to like the Family Guy thing that you were talking about, but also I didn't get a chance to write a poem for you, but your poem did remind me of a song that I remembered about. I don't know if you like want me to drop the link in the chat or something, something like that, because after reading your poem, this was exactly the song. Yeah, this was a song I completely like. I was like, oh, Robert's gonna love this one. Huh. But yeah, other than that, I really enjoyed your poem, Robert. I'm always looking forward to having a class with you. I really enjoy how unapologetic your poems are. I think that's the right word I can use, and I think that's a fair word to use for
right now.
Sir, I'm talking. Can you like shut up for like 2 seconds? Thank you. Anyways.
Lucky Angelica.
I'm so sorry. But yeah, but again, all your poems seem to be really unapologetic, very raw, and I feel like that's something that I think I'm working on, and I feel like some of us may also be working on, really just not censoring a lot of our words, a lot of our feelings. And I think you do a great job at being somewhat of like a guideline for people like us who have a little bit of struggle, just being a little bit vulnerable on a page. So I really want to applaud you for that.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate you saying that, because talking about a lot of times I like to speak from that universal I, because it's easier than talking about, like my own personal anxieties, or, my own personal like things I'm going through in my life. And because of the way that the author statements in this class are structured, I kind of like, it kind of almost forces you to be like, and this is how it relates back to me. You know what I mean? So the author statement almost makes the poem feel a little bit more naked than it would feel without the statement. You know what I mean? And yeah, I do appreciate if the compliment that if my poems feel unapologetic, because that's I take that as a big compliment, Angelica. Leslie, how are you doing? Do you have your Oscar speech written? You ready to go? You ready to thank the Academy?
No, I actually started working on something, but then I was just kind of going over your piece again and just, looking at some of your highlights. And yeah, I love the humor that stands out in this piece. And I can really relate to just having a lot of people have that thing where, it's so hard to see the good in yourself that it's just so hard for you to plot a compliment. They're like, oh, you look really nice today. And you're like, oh, no, I don't, like this whole thing or whatever. It's just so hard for some of us sometimes to just step back and accept those compliments, whether it's about our work or whatnot. And you sum it up really well in this piece. Here you go. You're home. Oh, I have someone that wants to say hi. Want to say hi? Okay, you're hi.
Special guest.
Okay. Yep. And so yeah, I'd like to definitely just try to write something along those pieces. The line that was inspiring me was with this pen. So that's kind of where I'm starting off from. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Yeah, definitely. I think like with this piece, I was trying to channel some of my own anxieties, and sometimes I think because I do talk so much and I put myself out there, I think so much, I sort of can sometimes have myself running my like sort of own thoughts back to be like, God, I sounded so stupid, like, my God, in like that conversation with my friend yesterday, or at that job interview a week ago, or in class, so. And I definitely, I hope that speaks to like a universal experience of like that people feel like that sometimes you feel like you're racking your brain like a week later about some conversation you had with your mom or your roommate, and about how silly you sounded, or like whatever. I hope that I'm not speaking only to myself, or that I'm the only person who goes through that. But I definitely I definitely hope that it speaks to like the human experience and like human dichotomy. Oh, did Christine go? Do we have you, Christine? Marco Polo, Marco.
Yeah, I found your poem pretty interesting. My question would be, what would happen if you actually accepted the compliments in the poem? Pretty much I could relate to the poem because it's like so similar. Like you brought up the poem, the poet from that poet slam about pretty. I feel like that like every day, where I'm like, am I pretty enough? Am I gonna make it through? Am I gonna be like the person that my mother wanted me to grow up to be? And it's hard to fill those shoes sometimes, because it's like you're going to be yourself in your own shoes versus the shoes someone else wants you to fill, basically. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, okay, so a really quick anecdotal thing. When I was in New York in July last year visiting my older brother, and he has 3 kids. So I was with my niece and my 2 nieces and my nephew, and I totally made a really bad raunchy joke in front of my nephew, and my brother, he called me out for it. He's like, hey, what if he repeats that back at school? And everyone thinks, and he got really like in my face. And I've never seen my older brother really like get like that with me. And I felt so bad. I was reprimanded for speaking dirty in front of my little 6-year-old nephew. And I felt guilty about that for like 6 months. And I was thinking about that all the time, every day. And my brother doesn't care. He doesn't hold on to like things like that or whatever. But I was just running through to my head. And so that's kind of a little bit to the what I was speaking to in this poem, a little bit of like sometimes just like getting like so wrapped up in your head about little things, or and just kind of letting that like sort of like sit with you, and you know what I mean, and just kind of like living in that sort of personal sort of anxiousness and anxiety over things that probably don't even matter to the people that they actually happened with. Those people have forgotten about it. They're like, wait, they're like, Robert who? They're like, I don't even remember you.
I love that, Robert. Thank you. So I want to just kind of put a cap on this workshop and give Robert a round of snaps. And thank you everyone for sharing, whether it was creatively, but also your comments on the work. And really quickly, Robert, what was this like having a workshop that started off as a creative response workshop, then it became a little bit more conversational, and there's a little bit of a gift method in there. How did you feel about your workshop today?
It was great. I loved Emily's poem, and I loved Matthew's poem. And I love that, especially for, I guess, people who have taken classes with me previously, like Tristan and Angelica. I'm glad that they're starting to see sort of some brand recognition. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, they're like, that feels very Robert Gold. You know what I mean? And so definitely the feeling of coming into my own sort of like as an artist. So, and that's definitely fun.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again, Robert. And Christine, I know you chose an asynchronous workshop, but I just wanted to give you a moment if you wanted to speak or share anything about your poem or poems, plural.
I don't really have much to share. I mean, I pretty much wrote about different things in all my poems, like the one about the memories about going to the beach. I feel like that one hit me the hardest because I've had family issues for the last like 7 to 8 years. And I feel like the past is always like being thrown into my face. And I feel like if things wouldn't have changed like 8 years ago, I think things would have been smooth, like a smooth ride, like the perfect life. And that's what I talk about in my poem, like how those memories from my childhood are what I'm most fond of, because just family issues caused my adulthood to be like more complicated and daunting. But other than that, yeah, feel free to comment on my poems. I don't have much to say about them really. I feel like I've said all I could in my poetry and in my author statement.
Great. Thank you, Christine. And, feel free to look over the feedback that you've gotten and see if there's one in particular you want to expand on, into that long poem, and think about the Poet-X today and how that long poem can allow the writer and the poet to really meditate on one theme and take on different angles within that space. So if there's one of those poems that you really want to work on and revise, definitely take that into consideration. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So if you haven't already, make sure to post your feedback in discussion for the workshop poets who went up today. I know there was a little bit of confusion about whether we're writing the poems to Robert in class or outside of class. So if you haven't already, just post your poems to Robert in the discussion as well. I'd love to hear from folks outside of the workshop poets. How did today's first round of workshops go? We had a variety today.
I think they all worked out well, but I just had one request. So I'm going up next week, and I wanted to know if we could fit in some time to go ahead and everybody do a little writing in class.
Yes,
I know I think there's 3 of us. So
there's actually,
or is there 4?
4.
Okay, if there's not enough time, then that's fine.
Okay. We'll have some time for some writing, and then you can bake that into your workshop as well.
Technically, you're allowed to go till 4:50 here.
True. Emily, how did this go? And then we'll go to Angelica right after.
I think it went well. I like, I guess, the conversational aspect of it, which is different from other workshops I feel like I've experienced at UCR. I don't know if you guys have all been in classes together, but I like haven't been in classes with hardly any of you. So I liked like getting to know people more and having that conversation, which was helpful just because we are on Zoom. So I feel like for a Zoom workshop, like I think it went pretty well, in my opinion.
Maybe Robert could be Professor Gold and help facilitate, because I do appreciate that, some of that humor infused in the workshop as well.
Yeah, I'll do the, like, what is it that I am the captain now? The thing
Right.
from
I love that. Angelica.
I really like this workshop. I think this is one of the first workshops where I was really involved, and not like involved, but kind of like I participated just a little bit more than what I usually would, even with my little nephew here. Very distracting, by the way, very distracting. But I really liked the different ways that we can respond to the poem. I think this is the first workshop that I've had where we can respond to a poem with our own poem, or with our own song or a gift or anything like that. And I think it's just a little bit more, it helps us interact a little bit more, because as I mentioned with Robert, like I listen to a lot of music, and with everyone's poems, there's a specific song that I kind of like tie it into. So I'm kind of excited for that. And but yeah, other than that, I really enjoyed the workshop. Dude, I'm talking, relax. Sorry, this is Damien, by the way. This is my
Hi,
little nephew.
Damien.
He has autism, and he's five. So he's very, very attached to my hip. Won't let me go.
So sweet. Yeah. Well, Angelica, I'm so glad that you feel comfortable to participate more. And I think like that's the beauty of like having different formats, is we can engage with each other in lots of different ways, right? Including the gifts, sharing songs, and it does make it feel more personal. All right, I know I was harping on all of you because we're such a small group today, but I mean, you all did fantastic, and I'm looking forward to next week. So I will hang out for another minute if anyone needs to chat, but I think we're done for today, and I will see you all next Wednesday. Fantastic job, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, let me stop the recording 1 second.